Good morning and welcome everyone. Welcome to the Safety Action Safety Update for August. I'm Gary Rowe, your host. Today, what I'd like to quickly go over and discuss with you is, should executives be involved in accident investigations? There's some recent conveyor belt accidents in New Zealand I'm just going to share with you, and this is then carries on, relates to machinery safety. And we run a series of safety workshops on machinery, which we think is very effective process for ensuring safety around equipment and machinery. And I'm going to give you the second part of my Gary Rowe highlights from the Gold Coast Safety Conference, which was held back in June. So the second part of this update from that, which are my highlights. And if you attended, you may have different highlights, and that'd be great to hear from you or your questions at some time. Before we kick off, I'd like a couple of questions, get our mind going for a Friday morning. Question: when is hot water too hot? Sorry, Jill, is that something about sound? Is that not high enough? Team, can I just saw a text on. Hopefully everyone can hear me clearly. Okay for me. Thanks, Katie. Okay, so I think my sound is operating for most people. Thanks, everyone. That's great. Okay, second question. So I'll just do that one again, just maybe. When is hot water too hot? So second question: what is the difference between bonding and earthing? So we're talking here about static electricity and static electricity around decanting with flammable liquids. So what is the difference between, people talk about bonding and earthing? So we'll have a look at these near the end of the session. So let's just pick up our first topic. And I think it's a really good one, because we are increasingly hearing we want more senior management participation in safety and in the safety program. And I think that's an excellent idea. However, what some people tend to do is then extend that logic, and they get the senior management engagement, interest and motivation, and send them out to do things like safety inspections and, per this topic, participating in accident investigations. And the first thing I would suggest is that you actually consider what is the role of each level in the business. So from the board down to executives, down to departmental managers, supervisors and team leaders and workers. And what I'd suggest to you is that executives have a different role to play in the safety program. So they can participate, and we want them to participate in your safety program, but I don't think we want them to be doing accident investigations or safety inspections or hazard hunts or any of the things you and your team should be doing. That's not the executive's job. So why ask them to do your job? So if everybody does their job correctly, the people working in each area and working on equipment and machinery should be held responsible to ensure it is safe before they use it. And therefore they do the inspections, and if an incident happens in that area, that local team will largely do that investigation, and that'll be reported up. And yes, executives can take an interest in this through reviewing the reports. It could be they could come back with further questions, seeking further analysis. It could be they question the recommendations and ask, are there any other alternatives? But we don't think, and we think best practice shows, this is not the best use of the very valuable time of your executives. So I think the generally supported answer in the industry is executives should not be doing accident investigations. That's the wrong use of their time. We shouldn't ask them to do it. I think secondly, you're actually increasing the risk of that executive to be actually prosecuted individually. It'll be shown years later, you participated in that accident investigation and you recommended these controls which were wrong or inadequate. An executive won't necessarily know all of the safety law, all of the technical issues around a work environment or equipment. and the tasks that people are doing regularly. So the people who know that are the ones that are doing it regularly. The supervisors of those people and the departmental managers know intimately all about those things. And we don't believe an executive can add anything of value in an accident investigation from a technical point of view. So the executives can drop in and say, well done team, keep up the good work and do it. Motivation, showing interest. We don't think they should be participating in it. And just to highlight this, it may be a bit of a squinty-eyed text here, but at least you can see the concept on a table that I prepared some time ago just to outline to an organisation what would be the typical roles in the organisation. So you'll see here at the top the board. So they should approve various things in the organisation, like the safety vision and the safety strategy. So at a very high level of the safety program, that's what they approve. They would review the key risk register on a periodic basis. They would seek assurances. Are we compliant with safety? Are we compliant with safety laws? Are we compliant with relevant standards? That's a good question from a board level to ask. And then it's up to the CEO and the managers reporting back to the board to give answers to those seeking assurances that they have got a competent program that meets, that's certainly designed to provide the systems which will deliver safety and compliance. And so you work your way down, departmental managers and supervisors. And as you can see here, as we come down, it's the employees that follow the procedure, ensure the immediate work area is safe, and going above that, this will be where supervisors will make sure that incidents are reported and investigated. That's just a quick summary. That's also in our newsletter, that table, if you have an interest in that, by the way. Just in relation to the conveyor belt fatalities, there was more than one in New Zealand of recent months, and I think from the start of this year. And so the article indicated they've issued $800,000 in fines, not a single fine. This was a collective over, I think it was 3 different fatalities so far this year in New Zealand. Actually, since March, I apologise. What they found, largely no guarding along the length of conveyors. So people understood at certain points they guarded it. Along the length of the conveyor was unguarded and people could be entangled in the machinery. And in one case, there was a report going back to 2017 that recommended guarding of the conveyor, but nothing was done. And so yet another fine was issued in that case. So we just want to share that with you. If any of your business or your colleagues and friends are involved with conveyors, I think you'll find that WorkSafe here in Australia, as well as New Zealand, have got a strong focus on this right now. And as I mentioned, because it follows on from this concern about conveyors, is machinery in general. And one of our clients recently said to us, we have used the top plant risk assessment specialists in Australia to assess our equipment and provide reports. And guess what? They've just sat on the shelf. So that's what a client told me recently. And that's rather sad, because we're talking about the top plant risk assessment people doing reports, very comprehensive, very accurate, great. No one understands them, too complex, sit on the shelf, no action. So what we've done with Safety Action is developed a program we call the Zero Access Program. What we do is build sustainable knowledge inside the business. So you haven't got a one-off event. What you've now got is your machinery assessed through a workshop using a number of your people in your team. And if you've got multiple sites, you bring key people in from other sites, train them over anywhere from 3 days to 5 days workshop. But that's not just pure training, it's actually assessing the plant. So the group is assessing the plant and assessing as much of it as possible at that site during that 3-day or 5-day workshop. And then you have the plant assessed, competently, thoroughly, and checked with top specialists from Safety Action working with the team to do it. And you've got anywhere from 10 to 15 people trained and competent and knowledgeable and motivated in your business to maintain safe machinery. So if any of your businesses have extensive machinery, that might be something to consider. I think one of the other things we asked in our most recent newsletter was, what's the difference between a safety vision and a safety plan? And it may be quite obvious to most of you, but I just want to make the point, and some people do forget this, and they think that a safety vision is real. It's actually aspirational, so it doesn't exist at this point in time. So you may state the vision, but actually we're not there. So to say we are a zero harm company is false advertising, and we should not say that, because you're not a zero harm company. No one is. It's our aspiration that we don't injure anyone at our workplace. So we need to make it clear. Otherwise, in my opinion, it is false advertising to pretend we're something that we're not. So make it clear that this is our aspiration. This is our desire. We are seeking to be a zero harm company, if that's what you want to say, if that's the word you would like to use, or everyone goes home safely at the end of each day, I think is a wonderful aspiration. And why is this a problem? And I'll tell you, because most of the workers and employees in your business are probably smarter than you think, and they can smell and detect false advertising, and they become cynical. So we're far better to say, we are way off it yet, but we want to be. And here is the plan we've put in for this year as the next stepping stone to get there. So what you need is a safety vision complemented with a safety plan. So the vision is aspirational. It's a statement of a positive future. We want the future to be brighter, happier, and safer for everyone. So that's what the safety vision is about. And then you put in a safety plan each year. And that's not aspirational. The safety plan is now locked in, planned, and budgeted. It's approved by the executive team. This is not aspirational. Once that's approved, a safety plan should be delivered 100%. Not, at the end of the year, we didn't get through the whole safety plan. We were over ambitious. I was away sick for one of those months. We had that incident and that took a lot of my time. They are all rubbish excuses. Don't accept them from anybody. When a plan is locked in, for January we do this, for February we're going to do this, March we do this, these should be done. And this should be just professional management of a business plan. So we call them a safety business plan, so that you actually get the mind. This is not aspirational, but should be treated like every other part of the business, who have every department in your business has a budget and they have a plan and they've got to stick to it. And their manager makes sure they stick to it. And there's no excuses for just saying, oh, yeah, I understand I was ill that month and we didn't do everything. No, it has to be delivered. So, and reported up through the executive and possibly to the board to show that that is being delivered month on month. And that's how you can show credibility with your safety vision and say, we're not cynical, we're not hypocrites. Our aspirational vision is what we really want and love. And here's what we're doing tangible this year to move us one step closer each year, getting closer to that. We never actually arrive there, but we would hope to get so close in future years that our vision is very close to what our reality is. And remember, you can't control everything. If somebody says, I feel bad and work contributed, it's almost nothing you can do about that. We want people motivated so they're not only physically and psychologically not injured, but they're motivated not to think, oh, work's made me unwell today and I don't want to go to work. So there's, if you like, a lost time injury. So there's safety vision and there's a safety business plan that locks in behind it to give you credibility for your statement of your vision. So a vision without a plan is just a myth, and you should rightly be criticised and have cynical workers if that's what you do. So make sure you have both. Safety vision is great. I want a realistic plan, and when people look at it and say, yes, I think that will move us towards our goal. Andrea of our team put in a segment in our latest newsletter just to update us on where we're going nationally with hazardous chemicals. And it may sound like nothing's changed and changed the name only. So Safe Work Australia, which is puts out the national codes of practice dealing with hazardous chemicals, said we're transitioning from workplace exposure limits, WELs, which you may be familiar with if you're using hazardous chemicals in your business. And so I do apologise. We're moving to workplace exposure limits, WELs, from what we've been used to, which is WES, workplace exposure standards. And they sound almost identical, and of course they virtually are. But introducing them, the new exposure standards, WELs, will typically be lower. The general trend of all chemicals over decades and decades, as we gain more information about the potential harmful effects of chemicals, generally year on year or decade on decade, you'll see the exposure limits being reduced. We started off over 30 years ago, having an exposure limit for asbestos. And essentially we say no today, it is a carcinogenic chemical, 0. We don't want it. It's banned totally in the workplace. So we've moved from an exposure limit to a lower exposure limit. And initially they said as blue asbestos had a lower exposure limit, but brown asbestos was not as dangerous. And so that had a higher limit. These days they're treated the same and been driven out. Now increasingly we're looking at solvents and various other flammable liquids, various other glues and other chemicals in the workplace. And scientists are finding through studies, these have harmful effects we didn't realise. So the general trend is the exposure limits are coming down. So they're not just changing their name. You'll find some of the chemicals will actually have a lower exposure limit. So that's they won't necessarily be mandated by the state regulations, but they represent best practice, and it'd certainly be negligent to ignore them and not to have undertaken some review of how you're managing chemicals that may be on that list if you've got them. So let's just turn to the second part. These were Gary Rowe's highlights, and if you attended or if you've got colleagues and friends that attended the Gold Coast Safety Conference back in June of this year, you may have picked up totally different things, and you may have attended different sessions as well, breakout sessions. What I came across was one of the presenters was quite compelling. 95% of the firms with fatalities had ISO certification. Isn't that scary? So we're increasingly hearing not just that we have a safety program, but we're asked, is your program certified? As if somehow that's going to be a safer program, because it's a better program, because it's certified. So this is not a statement of anti-certification or anti-ISO certification. I think the comment that I'm trying to make here, and I think that the author of this statement, who presumably did the study, has actually found that people go into certification for the right reasons. We want a good, solid system. We want that verified, that system's there and operating. But that alone does not guarantee you the safety. And an auditor is only visiting for a limited period of time, largely office-based and looking at paperwork, because that's what's being certified, essentially. The walkthrough is very cursory, and a lot of the ISO auditors don't even have a background in safety. They may be environmental or something else, but they are certified ISO auditors. So they aren't necessarily safety experts to look at your environment and tell you there's a fatality risk here. And indeed, they may not see it, to be fair. I might not see it on a visit to your site. So all this is telling you is don't sit there and say, we're ISO certified, this can't happen to us. It's actually 95% of them with fatalities had ISO certification. So this is scary. Maybe it's telling us that they're focused too much on the paperwork and have lost sight of physical risk. We would say, where's your key risk register? And you should have the top 5, top 10 risks that could seriously injure or kill people in your business and have very solid controls for them. That might be more valuable than ISO certification, unless you have a business reason. And many people do, because they have stakeholders or customers that demand ISO certification, then so be it. I'm not arguing against that. That's good commercial operation. You get ISO certification because you're told that's how we do business. But if you don't have that, I'll be questioning why are you pushing down this expensive route, which may have lower value than you think. So I think it's good just to challenge. Are we getting the value? Another one I found quite startling. 50% of artificial intelligence references are fake. So people are creating stuff, putting it out online, and artificial intelligence is finding it and putting it as part of whatever collection of documentation people are putting together. And so unless you now go in and independently check those references which are cited, the study showed, and this was an Australian lecturer from one of the Australian universities, as I recall, did this study and found 50% of AI references are fake or created. So they're obviously fake in the same way or somehow manufactured or altered. So you need to just show a bit of caution with those. I think a number of people may know Steve Bell from Herbert Smith Freehills. We used to know them just purely as Freehills, as a senior lawyer there. He provided a session on the legal realities. And one of the things I liked that he mentioned is don't get emotional about the safety law. It's nothing to do whether the law is good or bad. He said the law is never good and it's never bad. The law is just the law. It's what Parliament's passed. So good lawyers are here to tell you, not that this is rotten laws and therefore you don't have to follow it or whatever, or that it's good law and you must follow it. The fact is the law is the law, and good lawyers will simply tell you what's involved and help you with compliance, as I think good safety consultants do. So we don't get emotional about the legislation. So I think that was the key takeaway from me. And I do find that people do get emotional. They, oh, this is a stupid requirement that I have to guard a machine like this, and we hardly ever use it, and it's very old. It's irrelevant. If it ever gets to court, it'll just simply be shown you had that machine. It was not locked out and tagged out, so therefore not decommissioned, and it didn't meet the standard or the regulation requirement. So it'll be in breach. There was some discussion around safety leadership, and I think many of you know that we do here at Safety Action run our foundation course on safety leadership is a 2-day course, and we call it the foundation course. Some clients choose to go a little bit further, and we have a host of other little half-day modules that can build around that. We're very proud of what we do, but there's a lot of good people out there now that are getting their mind around what are the elements of good safety leadership and how do you do it. I think we try and touch on some of these things during our monthly safety updates here as part of our webinars. And speakers touched on what, effective communication once again, and I'll just turn my mind, if I can, over to see if I can just find my key points on that, which I thought was rather good. One of the ones was, going back to Steve Bell before I go to effective communication. The other thing he mentioned, increasingly he's getting inquiries about working from home. And a lot of businesses are either think this is good and embracing it, and I think it has some good elements, and some are worried about it and it's excessive and it's preventing good, effective operation of the business. Well, what he did say is not whether that's good or bad, whether you should do it or not, but rather when people are looking for an argument against it or simply doing a risk assessment, is it okay to do it and safe? They spiral down to trivial matters for which they have no control. One of the examples he gave is, but what if the person's own dog bites them in their own home? They're working at home. They will be at work and they are injured. So without question, it becomes a workers' comp claim, a valid workers' comp claim. There's no question. If you're working and you're injured, you've got a valid workers' comp claim. So the fact that it's your own dog that bit you is irrelevant. Secondly, they may also be able to have a common law claim because you didn't make inquiries about do you have vicious animals and are they kept separate when you're working or whatever. And most businesses would not even think to ask that. But the comment that Steve Bell made from Freehills was simply don't spiral down to things you can't control, like trivial matters like that. think of the big ticket items, and these are the things you want to verify. So that was another point I thought was well made. Oh, sorry, on communication, I do apologise. I was just looking for my point on this. And the key one that I got out of it was safety culture is the collective behaviours. And I think we all know this, the way we do business around here. What we have known here at Safety Action for a long time, and I think many of you would know, and it was highlighted again by the speaker in this particular case, was that people think when they develop a personal habit that now this is our culture of our business. So the safety manager wears the safety boots, wears the safety vest, walks on the pedestrian walkways, uses the correct crossing every time and says that's our culture. It's not a culture because you do it. It just means it's your personal habit. So you can't claim this as the safety culture of your business. So the culture is the collective behaviours of everyone in the business. And so it's the way we do business here. And when that's standard for everyone, then we can start talking about being part of our culture. And obviously it's effective communication with our team that'll get us to that point. And just touching on an enforceable undertaking, one of the speakers at the conference had a fatal accident at a logistics site where a load fell off the truck, and you can see the actual, I believe, the truck from the accident in the scene here behind the speaker. This happened back in 2019, and that steel load was bumped off from the loading equipment on the other side. A telehandler bumped it off, fell on the driver, who thought he was safe because he was on the opposite side to the telehandler, so he wasn't within the 3 meters of the mobile plant. But the load was unrestrained because the telehandler's taking load off, and it bumped a load and fell on him and killed him. So that was the accident. What I liked from the executive, I think it was the CEO, George Bardas, who's now the current CEO of this particular firm, and Hanson Yuncken, a construction firm. And what he said was, we could have gone to court and simply paid the fine. He said, how would that help the community and anyone else? He thought that was not very helpful. So they've undertaken, I forget how much money they agreed to spend. It was a substantial amount, typically more than what the fine would be. And we've agreed with WorkSafe to this enforceable undertaking. And so what they're doing is not just training their own people, but developing training packages, how to spot hazards like this that are suitable for the whole industry. So they're making these available. So they've engaged one of the universities to help them, one of their safety departments, to help them with their study to identify these hazards in this part of the industry and develop packages. I thought that was a very good community-minded approach. I do know, working with a number of senior lawyers, they generally advise our clients not to do enforceable undertakings. They have other legal risks. But if you said from a community-minded approach, I'd rather do something that would help us and the construction industry. I thought that was a good approach from the execs of Hanson and Yuncken in that particular case. So collective behaviours. So I've already mentioned, don't confuse your personal behaviour with the habits of others. So as we've just mentioned, and safety culture as a system, it's not a score. So you've got to consider the risk tolerance, resilience of the business, etc. And one of the speakers said, is all stress bad? And the answer is, according to the speaker, and I'm probably correct, the answer is no. Many aspects of normal life, life challenges, benefit people. So a little bit of challenge, excitement, and maybe unknowns is actually helpful. So some stress is inevitable in life. There is no such thing as zero stress. You can't achieve it in your business. You can't deliver it to your staff. So we shouldn't even be talking about that. We should be looking at resilience and sustainable levels of workload and behaviour in our people. So there was that final point there. and we're coming up to our time. So at the end of our session, I'd just like to come back to our question. So when is hot water too hot? So what I can share with you is that the research shows less than 60 degrees, sorry, I apologise, greater than 60 degrees Celsius will and can cause a 3rd degree burn, which is serious, in a few seconds. So greater than 60 degrees, so boiling water out of the kettle within a few seconds. I think we know that. We pull our hand away very quickly if we get anywhere near boiling water from the kettle or whatever. So what we have as a plumbing standard in Australia is 50 degrees maximum for hot water outlets for personal hygiene. So this is showers and bath taps, etc. should be limited to 50 degrees C. This is achieved by putting in a mixer valve so that no matter where you turn it to maximum, the resultant water coming out will typically not exceed 50 degrees. Older houses and units won't have this, so you may have to be careful and maybe even check your water outlets and what they are, whether a mixer valve, sometimes referred to as a tempering valve, can be installed. And also, but for vulnerable groups, like at schools with young people, hospitals, aged care and people with disabilities, they recommend 45 degrees maximum, because they may not be able to withdraw their hand or foot out of a bath or whatever as quickly as you and I might be able to from a 50 degrees. So the point is, though, that all hot water systems need to store water greater than 50 degrees. Remember, that's our suggested maximum. They have to do this to prevent bacteria building up in the system. And that's why you need the mixer valves or tempering valves, because your hot water systems will be running in the storage area, if you've got a storage area system, at greater than 50 degrees. And they have to be higher than that, otherwise the risk of bacteria growing in the water. But you want the delivery at either not more than 50 or not more than 45 if you've got vulnerable people in your group where you're servicing that water. So there you go. When is hot water too hot? For most adults, greater than 50 degrees. Vulnerable groups, greater than 45 degrees. Of course, you and I know if you're sitting in a bath, you've got much longer time of contact. So it's not just the temperature, you're in there longer. Whereas these temperatures are about short term, 50 degrees, 45, we could put our hand in and foot in, whatever, but don't sit in the bath if it's that hot for too long. So what's the difference between bonding and earthing? So just to show you that on the diagram here, grounding is when there's a metallic cable, it's typically a cable or a wire or a steel plate running from the flammable liquid container through to ground, and then be in a ground stake. It'll be into the ground, and I think from memory the ground stake needs to be greater than 1.5 meters into the ground. So the plumber or the builders will have done that, so that's fine. So that's grounding or earthing. So they're running any static electricity that builds up in that. It looks like a 200-litre drum in the image I've shown there. With a cable down into the ground, means it will not prevent it building up static electricity. So what's bonding then, and why do we need that as well? There's a separate container. So now we're decanting. A bonding strap is often just a set of clips. You can see some in the right-hand side there. So they're just spring-loaded clips. You can connect between the larger container and the small one you're decanting into, because flowing flammable liquids, no, they don't achieve the same thing. They're both needed. One stops the large container, the 200-litre drum, from building up static electricity, but flowing flammable liquids create static electricity. So when you start decanting, even if the large container is earthed, it will build up static electricity both in the funnel and through to the smaller container you're decanting into. So you bond them together with clips, so they're both at the same electrical voltage. And so there won't be a spark jump because they're both at the same voltage because of those cables. So both are needed if you're doing best practice with storage and decanting of flammable liquid. So that's what you need to consider. So that takes us through most of our what we'd like to share today. Just put it in the diary, save the date. We'll give you more details soon. Thursday, the 9th of October, 10 a.m, morning tea included, a safety networking event. We're still planning it and we'll give you more details next month about that. But if you just pencil it in your diary, that'd be great. So thank you for joining us and your support as always. Andrea's got a bit of a sore throat today and so away. So thank you for your time once again, everyone. And we look forward to seeing you next month, or some of our clients and friends. We may see you in the meantime. So thank you very much. Bye.